Do you remember the first time you went to the grocery store after this whole COVID thing started? Like when they were first recommending that you should have at least 2 weeks of food and everybody went and stocked up. You remember that? And the first couple of grocery store visits were kind of all the same. No toilet paper, no rice, no flour. Like, who even uses flour? Like, I know some millennials, some of us are like making sourdough bread or whatever, but I know it's none of my friends because I ain't gotten any yet. Regardless, do you remember that first trip or the first couple of trips? I do. I remember distinctly looking at other people's carts, noticing how full they were or were not, the sort of things that they were buying. And while partially that's like a fun game, the other part of me I found was pretty judgmental about the status of somebody else's cart, specifically on whether or not they were like hoarding or buying more than they needed or bowing to fear, right? And I just felt this sort of surge of judgmentalism rise up in me, and this became this weird exercise of me like learning how judgmental I was, and learning to reserve that and learning to consider all of the other like sides of the thing. Hey, the truth is, we are all pretty good at making snap judgments. We've been trained to, notice and evaluate whether a website and a Google search is going to help us in the first couple of milliseconds. Like, what we know whether somebody looks safe or whether they'd be friendly, or whether we would want to be friends with them, or whether somebody can help you or not, whether somebody's attractive. Our brains have been trained culturally to just make those snap decisions in a matter of milliseconds. I mean, literally. The problem is that when we begin to judge people in that fashion, we create problems for ourselves on two separate planes. Jesus was teaching what's known as the Sermon on the Mount. It's like his paramount sermon, one of the greatest pieces of oration of all time. Some would consider it. And Jesus is talking about the kingdom of heaven, like this reality, this right now building, but also in completion later reality for people who follow Jesus and love God, right? And one of the sections in Matthew 7, he talks about judging. He says, don't judge or you will be judged. In fact, he says, the measure with which you use to judge will be used to judge you. See, here's the problem with being judgmental towards somebody is, first and foremost, is it separates you from other people. Right? And this has a ton of implications for followers of Jesus, from just like being kind and compassionate to like caring for vulnerable people groups, right? When we immediately judge somebody, we put them at arm's length. We create distance between them and us. And ultimately, if God were to call us to speak with them or pray for them or help them follow Jesus, that creates a tension. The second problem is this, is that when we decide to sit in judgment, it's kind of an arrogant soul stance, right? It becomes dangerous for your soul because it puts you in a place where you almost become your own God, where you become judge, jury, and executioner on somebody else's behalf, where you begin to think that you know enough about one person with one look to decide everything you need to know about them. The problem is those snap judgments that we've all developed over the course of our lives are far more influenced by our experiences and by people we've experienced than the person we're making a decision about. I think that statement Jesus makes is as much a future reality about God and judgment as it is about an observation for right now for you and me. See, I find in myself that when I'm being judgmental, has a lot more to do with what I find disgusting inside myself than what I find disgusting about that person. Think about it. There's no way that you or I, in less than a second, can know everything we need to know, all the influences and relationships and experiences that have created this person that we're making a final decision about, essentially. We do, however, know all about the relationships and experiences and things that have influenced us. It's far more likely in a judgment, in a situation where we are offered the opportunity to judge, that we are casting judgment on ourselves more than them. And that's why I'm so grateful for Jesus. I'm so grateful that he's involved in this judgment thing, because the truth is, he is big enough to see me in my entirety, in a holistic nature, my wounds, my triumphs, my skills, my weaknesses. He sees all of it. He's not scared by any of it. He still loves me and likes me regardless of all of this. And that's the kind of judgment I would really be interested in. I'm sure you would too. Hey, let's continue extending second chances to strangers. Let's not hold people in prisons of their past decisions. And most of all, let's help one another follow Jesus.